beaner by day, scientist by night.
Maybe a little mad.
A mad beating scientist. That's going to be the
Yes.
title of your episode.
There we go. I love it.
Welcome back to another episode of A Girl Business Podcast. I'm your host, Shelby, and today we're in lovely Chico, and I'm at String Bead with our owner, Heather. Heather took over the store. She went from employee to owner during COVID, right?
Yes. Well, so I wasn't an employee during COVID, but that was when I took over the business. I have worked for both previous owners. So Kari and Robert hired me back in like 2006. It was like one of my first jobs out of high school. And then one of the coworkers that I had at the time, she ended up buying the store, Carol, and worked for like 6 years before finally going to school. So I hadn't been involved quite for some time, but each owner has been like either an employee or the person who started it. So that's kind of a cool thing.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So we're here today at String Bead, and I'm going to let you take it as far back as you want to go. The girls love the details, and if you enjoy watching women in business thrive, feel free to hit the subscribe and like and share and all that awkward social media jazz.
Yes.
And go ahead and get started. I'm so excited to hear all about the story. And I have to know the story of the dinosaur shirt.
I have a lot of different themed things. Dinosaurs is a big one. So like I mentioned, this was one of my first jobs out of high school. I've always been a huge art person. I've always been into drawing, painting, hands-on, like woodworking. One thing I didn't actually do was jewelry. Like I wasn't a big jewelry worker because I was someone who liked to like get outside and get dirty. So it was like I would lose stuff all the time. And I am a bigger person. Finding things that fit was always kind of hard for rings and stuff. So I kind of gave up on a lot of that. But I was just really going door to door at the time looking for a job because I was sick of fast food and ended up getting hired here. And fell in love when I learned how to do glass bead making. And that's kind of where String Bead really started, was Kari and Robert were like second generation lamp workers, which is glass bead making. And so really intricate like flowers and floral designs. And it's just fun when you get to melt things. And so when I found out that that was a thing that I could do, it was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to sit here and melt some glass and have some fun with it. It was super intimidating working with like torches and tanks when they tell you like, oh, if you don't turn this on right, like it's going to explode. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to die. Right. But then I kept making all these beads and it was like, okay, I work in a bead store. I'm making all these beads. Like, I guess I should actually start making some jewelry with them. And then when I started being able to like make personalized things was when I was like, okay, yeah, I am a jewelry person. I just didn't have the right kind of jewelry that I found that I liked. And so then it just snowballed from there and got into more metalworking and saw work and just crazy with it. Until, about 6 years later, I kind of went as far as I could here being an employee. And still had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Because when I graduated high school, like I said, I was really big into the art. Really thought I was going to go into art school. Saw the cost of tuition on a lot of places. And even though I was a first generation college student, there wasn't a lot for like, it was hard to find scholarships that would cover that, let alone like living costs. So I was just like, you know what? I'll just spend the money on art supplies and just keep going with that. And so when I finally decided to go back to school, I wanted something that was going to give me a career, like a job. Like I wanted a job with my degree. If I'm going to school, like that was my end goal. So I dove into science. Didn't have any science background in high school. I was like, I don't even know if this is something I like. I kind of wasn't great in chemistry in high school, but I didn't like my teacher, so I kind of like did my art in science class. So, I was kind of like a weird troublemaker in that I was like, technically I was doing homework. It just wasn't like that homework. And had amazing teachers at Chico State, ended up staying local, born and raised here in Chico. So it was easy, and Chico State's still a very inexpensive college compared to a lot of places. And went with clinical laboratory scientist. So that is Yeah. What I do full time outside of here, when I'm not here at the store at String Bead, I moonlight as a scientist.
Beater by day, scientist by night.
Maybe a little mad.
A mad beating scientist. That's going to be the
Yes.
title of your episode.
There we go. I love it. So where do dinosaurs fit into all that? One of the other things that I really thought I was going to be growing up was a paleontologist. Like, I mean, Jurassic Park is huge right now. I was like 6 when the movie came out. And I mean, I cheered when the dinosaurs ate people. And like, rewatching it older, I was like, oh, those were the good guys. I probably shouldn't have been cheering, but like, I was excited for dinosaurs. And so that's just always been a thing. And so dinosaurs, dragon, fantasy has been a passion. And, the science behind it and how we know about these animals and bone structure and that kind of thing is just really fascinating. So I always try to, in some way, incorporate science into the classes that I teach in the jewelry and the art, because it's all the same. You can't have art without science because you have to know how things work. You have to know how things are going to go together and reactions, which is why I loved the glass. Some glass reacts with each other and you get cool new colors. Some of them don't like working with each other and your bead breaks every time. And you're just like, okay, these just are not compatible. I just can't do that. And so I try to encourage and pass that along because science can be intimidating for a lot of people. And when I was in high school and growing up, like that, it was not encouraged at all. Like art was totally encouraged. It's like, oh, you're a good artist. Just keep up with that. That's great. And it's like, yeah, that's cool to encourage people for that. But, I did also love math. Science, it kind of had some okay teachers and didn't have that many. And so it just wasn't even like a thought process for a lot of people to be like, well, do you like this? Or, is this something you would want to, just never even came up. So it was intimidating. Like when I went back to Chico State, like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'm either going to love this or hate this. And I had an amazing teacher who made it super easy. Thank God that first semester, because after that, the next couple professors and classes were just like, oh God, what am I doing? Like, I think I might have chose the wrong thing. And then got that professor again. It was like, oh no, it's 100% how people teach. And so it was like, this is something that I can do. So that made it fun, and that made it interesting, and made it like something like to get passionate about and to get into. So
were you working at the store while you were going to school?
I started, but I was going to school full time because I definitely wanted to get done in 4 years. And with science classes, that means heavy class schedule. So my availability really did get cut. I kind of wanted to still do things, but it just didn't work out with me and the previous owner. It was kind of like, nope, she needed somebody more full time. And so at that point, it was then just doing whatever part-time job I could fill in between, which is really hard, as anyone knows, in Chico to do, because there's 1,000 students with the same schedule availability that it's like, yeah, we've got 100 people who can work on Saturday, but who can work on Monday or Friday, Mm-hmm. So a lot of bouncing around doing other stuff. And then this is a little bit of a controversial topic right now, but I volunteered at Kirshner for like a decade. Kirshner Wildlife Sanctuary was a facility that took on animals with special needs, big cats, domestic species, bears. And those animals are ones that would otherwise be put down for the most part, because a lot of places only take animals that are in good health and good specimens. So even like the runt of the litter oftentimes won't find a home. And a lot of these big animals wouldn't exist if we didn't have them in captivity. And we're not a perfect world. There's so many animals out there that you can't just breed to release because they're still poached in other countries. So it was a nice place to go and work and take care of the animals. And I did a lot of hands-on with big cats that I would never have gotten an experience anywhere else. And so I did that in between going to classes and working as well.
Wow.
Actually, I was volunteering while I was working here at String Bead. And that kind of sparked my interest into science a little bit, because we would get these animals that have genetic disorders because of inbreeding, because there are so few. And my mind would just go like, well, like how? Like why? And then we would test for it. And I was like, well, how do you test for it? Like, sometimes it's blood samples, and when it comes to diet, you're scooping poop and sending it in. And I knew I didn't want to be a vet. Like, I love animals to death. I'm like very passionate about animal care, which is why I would not want to be a vet. Like, I think I'd be a little too emotionally wrecked if I was. And so, and so that kind of sparked the curiosity of like, oh, I would never have thought that, what you could learn from an animal's poop. And same thing from us as people. Like, I literally process everything that comes out of the human body. And so that's what I do at night is I test samples, a lot of routine stuff, but some obscure things. And it's like a little mini investigation a lot of times. And so it really keeps the learning and the curiosity going. And so that's what I've found that I'm really big into is like if my brain goes down a rabbit hole on something, like I have to know why. And so that definitely feeds the scientist.
Okay, so you're volunteering, going to school, and then at what point after school did you make your way back, or how did you make your way back to the store?
So a lot of major events after 2015. I got my foot in the door at a local hospital, Orville Hospital. I worked there for a couple of years because even though I had a bachelor's degree, to be a scientist, you have to do kind of like nursing. You have to do a 1-year like rotation internship and pass an exam. And we do have several hospitals here locally that participate in that. And so I wanted to really get into one of those so I didn't want to have to go out of state or go somewhere down south where the cost of living is through the roof.
Right.
And so I was working there trying to apply to a program, and campfire happened. I moved up to Paradise for 1 year, the wrong year. And I had got accepted the same year as the campfire. So now it was like, okay, I'm starting from scratch and I'm going back to school again. So it was a very whirlwind year trying to figure out like where I was going to be living, what to do. Had a really close friend with me that we'd already kind of moved in together, had each other's backs, so we just kind of kept moving around with each other. And got through school, went to go take my board exam, and by now it's 2020. We drive up to Reading because you have to take a proctored exam. They have to sit there and watch you so you don't cheat and look up things online and whatnot. And I get there and it's closed. I'm like, okay, I'm early. Like, I'm totally early. I got here like 45 minutes early. Wanted to make sure that, we weren't going to hit traffic or anything. No sign on the door or anything like that, other than like, oh, if your proctor isn't here 15 minutes prior to the test, call this number. So as time starts ticking by, I start calling the number. No answer. Lines are busy. We'll get to your call, blah, blah, blah. 45 minutes later, I'm like already supposed to have started taking my test. And I'm like, I'm ready to shit myself because I'm expected to start working the next day as a scientist because you pass your exam, like you're pretty much good to go. And so I'm like, okay, like what's going on? And so as time keeps going by, I start trying to call other numbers, no one answering. It was March 17th, which is when literally the whole world shut down. Nobody showed up to work that day, any offices, phone call centers, like nothing. So after 3 hours of panic, I call my boss up and I'm like, so I don't know what to do. She's like, oh, it's temporary. It'll only be for a day or two. 6 months later, before anything opened back up again, I had this like limbo. I mean, like I don't know what's going to happen. Like the one time that we really need more scientists to do testing, nurses, doctors, all those same people take their board exam through that one proctored facility, and they shut down like not just nationwide, like globally. And so it was like they really cut off a lot of people for that year that could have gone into the workforce to help, which really contributed to burnout because so many people working overtime, people were coming out of retirement to try and fill in because it was chaos. Like no one knew what to do or how to handle things, which was a big problem. So during that time, I hadn't really gotten back into the jewelry making after having lost everything in the campfire. I hoarded and bought a lot of canvas, but never really painted anything. I collect canvas. And so I came back into the store and, wanted to just get some supplies. And the owner was here at the time, Carol, and she was like, you want to buy a store? I was like, I don't even know if I have a job. Like, I'm not sure if I have the funding to buy a store right now, like, and she had the store for like 13 years. She had moved out of town because she had lost everything in the fire. And so she was like, I can't keep coming up here to keep going. Like COVID, I lost all my employees because she had to shut down. And so it was like, at first it was like, no, this is like insane. I'm not going to do that. And then she asked me again, and I was like, okay, well, seriously, like, are you really trying to sell the store? Are you going to close the doors? And she was like, yeah, if she couldn't sell, she was going to close and pack it up and do something or sell it off or whatever. And I was like, well, banks are closed. So let's see if, like, even anyone's willing to loan out any money right now because, I mean, who's to say? Banks might be like, no, this is a stupid idea because it's COVID. Everything's closed. Like, why would we loan you money? And so that took about 6 months going through the approval process because, I mean, I didn't have a home or anything like that to what normally people would do for loans for collateral. So it was very interesting, very unconventional. And at that point, I was able to schedule a new appointment. And so I was able to go and take my exam. So I officially got licensed. And so I was like, okay, well, at least now I have a secure job. On top of, like, I can really dive back into art and getting back into being creative, which was something I hadn't done for a couple years because of school and the campfire and just going through things. I just worked. It was easy to work rather than try to process things. And so I'm really good at keeping myself busy, which is why running the store, moonlighting as a scientist. But this way I can at least, like, express passions and things that I have fun with, get other people excited about art and science and just being creative. So it was definitely a journey.
Yeah. So you took ownership of the store and you got your license at the same time.
Yes, within like a month or two of each other.
So you're literally starting like two life's paths at once.
Yes, which would not have been possible if it wasn't for my best friend, Eric. He's like the silent partner of the business. He's the one who, it was like, okay, if we can't figure this out, like, I got to have some help somewhere. And so for like the first 6 months during COVID, when we weren't like allowed to have employees, like we didn't know what to do or think. We ran the store. We helped, like we actually moved it. It's like a running joke with us that every November we've had to move for like 4 years straight. And like, yeah, it's kind of coming up again. And that November, and like when things finally got signed, it was like mid-October. And then it was like, okay, we were in kind of a really small space at that point after the campfire. She had moved it all within this shopping center. And so it's like, I don't want a cramped store. I got to have space. I got to have room to like spread out and do things just because like I don't want it to feel like a closet. It's got to have room. And so this space was open. And so he helped paint, set up everything. Yeah. So that made it more doable. And still does a lot of the silent behind the scenes stuff. Just fixture wise, like for functioning. Mm-hmm. So he's been like my right hand, like we've been partners throughout this whole thing. So he's always had my back as far as encouraging me for school and other stuff. So, we've just, like I said, closest friend, been there for each other, been through literally hell and fire and things. So, yeah.
So what was it like the first couple months? You're a business owner and you're a lab tech, is that?
Lab scientist.
A lab scientist. And that seems like such right brain, left brain. Like, walk us through what that journey was like.
It was definitely interesting because my schedule was also chaos in the beginning because, new position, new title, bottom of the, it's like you get filled in wherever. So I was doing swing shift, day shift, knock shift. And COVID actually allowed us to have more flexible hours that way because like everyone got like, hey, you're open when you're open and we get it. After a while, after 6 months, it was kind of more like people started expecting regular hours. And so it was like, okay, I need something a little bit more structured. I need to know what my schedule is going to be so I can schedule what the store is going to be. And then, being able to hire a couple people to kind of help out with that. And actually somebody that I volunteered with for a very long time. So, I mean, somebody who I literally trusted my life in front of lions and tigers and bears with, happened to walk in, and I told her, I was like, oh, hey, are you looking for a part-time job? Because, like, I could use some help out. And she was like, really? So she's actually been one of my main employees for, like, the last 3.5, 4 years. So she tends to run things in the morning when I can't be here, which has also been, like, super helpful to be able to have someone that can be here and kind of learn the ropes and know what's going on. So, because I think that was the biggest struggle, was not having employees already in place that kind of knew how things worked, or even just refiguring out how things work and keeping it going. Because, you know, the store itself has been around for 33 years. And the coolest thing about that is, like, I get people who are my age that when they were a kid, they came in and, you know, had their birthday parties here, made bracelets with their friends, or, you know, they just made little friendship bracelets and gave them away. And so they're bringing their kids in. And then people are bringing their grandkids in. And so it's like that now, like, generational memories and things that you can build on, which is really cool.
That is cool. How was the community when ownership changed? Was it mostly positive feedback, or did you get any kind of pushback from the community?
I mean, I didn't really, like, function-wise change a lot of things. I mean, classes were kind of on hold for a long time because, you know, having a large group of people during COVID was kind of frowned upon, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that because of where I worked. I'm potentially exposed to COVID all the time, and, like, I don't really want to put that out in the community a whole lot. But, I mean, the biggest thing was, of course, you know, with small business like this, you build a rapport with the owner. And so, I mean, I still get people who come in and go, oh, is Carol here or is Kari here? And it's like, well, neither of them been here for like 5 or 15 years. So obviously it's been a while since you've been in. But I mean, I also get a lot of people who, when I worked here, I mean, I worked here full time and did classes, that they're like, you look really familiar. And it's like, I probably taught you your first class. Like, and so it was a very easy transition. You know, a lot of people were kind of sad to see, of course, a person that they were connected to go, but at the same time, so many people were excited that somebody who was like an employee was taking over and not just some random person, let alone somebody who, like, maybe would have dramatically changed the business. It's like, I kept the name for a reason because it's familiar. People know the store. And like I said, been around for 33 years. So that was kind of a cool thing. I guess when I bought it, it was like 28 years, but been around for almost 3 decades. So
Yeah. What was the learning curve like to learn the business side of it? Because you went to school to become a scientist. So do you feel like that prepared you at all for what you need to know to run a business?
Not so much. Other than, like I said, I do like math. And a lot of businesses, accounting, numbers. But that was one advantage, that, like, when I did work here, I did do a little bit of it, and I got to see some of the background stuff, and I'd help with some of the ordering. So it wasn't super foreign, but there was definitely, like, that first year calling up a lot of people going, okay, am I forgetting something? Like, what else is due? You know, getting insurance, employee insurance, like, getting the employees was kind of the more complicated thing. When it's just you know, there's only so much you have to worry about. But once you have employees, there's a lot of additional California state requirements, insurance, paperwork, constantly filing things. And so, but I mean, the age of technology and apps that we have, there's so many easy programs out there that you can just plug in and go. And so it's like they calculate all the liability taxes and all that. So it's like that these days is so much easier than, I know that was something that was like a constant struggle 20 years ago, because you didn't have an app that you could just put the information in. You had to have like a bookkeeper or an accountant that said, oh, by the way, it's now this percent, and you got to change and update all that on all your employees. And I couldn't imagine having to, like, figure that out that long ago versus today. You know, there's an app for everything. And so it makes it a lot more streamlined. Mm-hmm. And I do actually enjoy the bookkeeping part because I do like math. I am a weird person. I like equations. I like things that come out nice and even. When it doesn't is when I freak out. It's usually a number error. And so, I mean, I do that more than I actually get to make jewelry.
Mm.
If you want to make jewelry, don't start a business. Take a class instead. And so that's actually why I like teaching classes, is because that's when I actually get to sit down and make something. Otherwise, yeah, it's bookkeeping, it's numbers, it's figuring out what to do next, and you know, how to keep things rotating and interesting and not having the same thing all the time, because it's a small community. We do get a lot of people all the way from like Redding, Sacramento, because bead stores are kind of becoming a thing of the past. Even before COVID, 10 years, a lot of bead stores closed because they're usually little mom and pop shops. And when somebody wants to retire, it's very difficult to find somebody willing to take on running a business, let alone purchasing the business and all the inventory and the name and everything that goes along with it. So a lot of stores would just kind of close. And then COVID really pushed a lot of them to going just straight online. And then once they adapted to being online full time, a lot of them didn't want to deal with opening up a brick and mortar again. Because it's a lot of overhead. When you're new, you don't have people flooding to your site. You've got to build that like momentum for it to even come up on a search. And again, it's one reason why I stuck with String Bead, because String Bead's been in Chico longer than Michael's has.
Wow.
And so when you look up bead stores in Chico or craft store, like it's String Bead and Michael's are like right there next to each other. It's not like you get Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, which isn't open anymore. It's like we were still kind of at the top because we've been established that long. So it takes that much time, you know. And so that's one thing that I haven't done, is trying to do a full online website for inventory. It's all informational. It's only about the classes, what we do here, events, because I'm not about to put 500,000 different beads up online.
Right, because I mean, you have quite the collection here, and we're going to do a tour, so stay tuned for a tour, because I am so excited to check this place out.
Yes, and I mean, that's the one thing that I love about it, is I get to handpick a lot of the stuff. And so I get a few of things. I don't order 1,000 of one. It's like, no, I order 1,000 things, but I'm only going to get like 3 or 4 strands of them. And so that kind of inventory isn't just conducive to being online, because I am a tactile person. Like, I have to be able to touch, feel it, and see it, you know, and if you do fossils, you have to lick it.
Really?
That's actually, if you go fossil hunting to know whether or not it's a fossil, you're supposed to lick it. It sticks to your tongue if it's a fossil.
Oh my gosh. Does it have like a taste? You're like, this is definitely dirt.
No, it literally just physically like sticks to your tongue. I've never actually had a chance to do it. Like I'm a huge rock hound. I want to go out and do all that kind of stuff. I've never had time to. And so, but I know that. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those, like, you have to touch it and feel it. Because everybody's computer screen is different. I mean, no matter what kind of quality picture they take, and, you know, even if you see the size, it's just different than just looking at it and comparing it to something. So I'm very big on keeping with the tactile and in person. So that's what I like about it. And it's more engaging when you get to be able to touch it and feel it. So.
And I like that if you find something that you like, you only buy a couple of it, because that keeps everything interesting. Like, you never know what you're going to find when you come in.
Yes. Yeah. One thing that I haven't had a chance to, since I've taken over the store, is gone out and purchased, because they have like trade shows and things like that, just like they do with a lot of other businesses. And Tucson, Arizona is like the big one that I really want to try and get to soon. But I mean, like, that's where you get all the unique things, because again, people who are either having them made or producing them, they are going to go and do the wholesale thing. There's more and more you're going to find online, but again, when you have something unique, you want people to touch it, because that's when you get more excited about it. Mm-hmm. I have some vendors, like, especially during COVID, because nobody was going to trade shows, I'd have just like a shady white van pull up in the back, start unloading some bins and just start digging through some things and buying beads. So I'd have people call me up and just be like, oh, hey, you guys are still here. All right, you want to buy some stuff? And I'd be like, yeah, sure, what you got? And so that's why I have stuff from like all over. So when we get into the tour, I can kind of talk a little bit about that. But I mean, like, glass beads are mostly made in the Czech Republic. For the ones that we buy, we have trade beads that are made in Africa, from Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia. A lot of the metals are made there. And so I like knowing the history of that too. And then getting into the trade beads, which is a whole like actual history because beads were currency at one point. And different shaped beads corresponded to value or what you would trade for them, from spices to people. That was a thing. And so, I mean, a lot of those you still find out in the world. They're collector items, and, you know, some of them weren't very common, and they're made in Venice. They're old Venetian glass beads. So, I mean, there's just so much variety to deal with that, I mean, anyone could get into beading because you're going to find something you like.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like, already just the little bit that you've shared, I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And it adds a lot of depth. Like, it's not just a bead store. Like, they all tell a story, you know?
Yeah. Like where they're made, how they're made, the history of them. We have some cool prints that I haven't hung up. They're along the bottom here. But like traditions that have been passed down, like from the 1800s, of like how beads are made. A lot of them are still made the same way. Cottage industries in the Czech Republic, and certain colors aren't available or only available in certain shapes because that's what that family or that village decides to make. Or somebody contracts to have them make. And so, I mean, like recipes change. Like no two people can bake the same cake. No two people can make the same recipe with glass. And so colors change over time, which is really cool. And then they call it a new name after a while. So yeah, that's always been fascinating with me too. And then gemstones, I mean, rocks and crystals are a whole world of themselves. I mean, there's a lot of different like passions and theories and things behind that. I love learning how crystals are related, how, you know, different things like aquamarine and emerald are actually the same crystal. Metals are what give them their colors. So, I mean, there's families of crystals based on their structure and how they're formed. So again, back to that whole science thing, like that's where I really dive into it. And so that is definitely my passion, and I like to share that with people. So a little bit different than what most people typically want to look for when they're getting into crystals. And I'll help them with that, but I don't memorize that kind of stuff. I don't get big into the metaphysical. We've got a lot of people here in town that are like huge gurus for that. And I'm like, I can help you Google something and I can tell you what's related to it, which is cool. And why they might have similar properties for that reason. Because a lot of people just try to memorize, and it's like, no, there's actually a reason why. And so I could go into hour-long lecture on just crystals easily. So
It sounds like there is some overlap in the work that you do as a scientist and the science. Like you said, there's science and art.
there is. I mean, there absolutely is. I mean, because although I don't do a lot of direct chemical reactions, a lot of the testing that we do is based off that. We have instruments that do it. But when it comes to art, I mean, there's the reason why certain glass has its color is because of the metals and the chemical reaction in them. Same thing with paints. Some paints are actually get their pigment from minerals. There's a certain blue, and it's not called lapis blue. I think it's called, I want to say like, not maybe cobalt blue, is ground lapis. That's where they get the pigment from it. And it's hard to chemically produce that color. And so, you know, a lot of lapis is mined to make pigments, still to this day. And a lot of old school artists, like in the Renaissance, it was a chemistry process to get pigments. It wasn't something you just go pull off a shelf. You had to sit there and like grind up things and mix stuff and figure out what color it was going to change or turn into. So
I could see why I could see, you know what I'm trying to say, why they were treated as currency, because it's a lot of work to do all that.
yeah, yes and no. I mean, when you get an experienced glassworker, it can go really quick. And you have beads that are simple. You have ones that have like striped patterns on them from mixing glass together. They call it canes, where you basically, like, have you ever seen caning with candy?
Yes.
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 Same process. It's actually, I'm not sure which one's older, if like taffy was first or glass. Probably glass. Glass is one one of the oldest professions. Like even Vikings would fuse sand to shields to give certain colors because that's basically all glass is sand. It's silica dioxide. And depending on what natural minerals were in the ground, it would turn different colors. And that even goes back into like, cool things like meteor strikes create their own glass. Going back to dinosaurs, finding meteorites.
We love dinosaurs, girls.
Yes. And so, I mean, it's in every way like something's tied together. And so, yeah, I do get maybe a little overly passionate about science and telling people things. They're just like, I just want to bead. Like, I just wanted to put something on a string. I don't need to know like how this was made or like why like NASA uses this or like how they invented it. But like most things in the beading world are stolen from other areas because, I mean, there aren't really scientists in the beading world making bead things. It's kind of more of like, oh, okay, we can use that. Like, oh, we can make that smaller, and then we'll manufacture that and use that because that's really strong and that's going to hold up better. And so, I mean, they might these days. I don't know. There might be like little bead analyst groups that go through and like figure out how to make stuff, but I'd love to meet them.
Might be onto something,
right? I mean, because they're all like micro. Companies or micro agencies that tend to specialize in making one thing. And so there's like really cool, unique pendants and charms that are, only made by these two ladies because a lot of things are still hand molded and cast and then, tooled. And so they're building the, thing to make the beads. All the way to the super popular thing with everybody right now is 3D printing. Mm-hmm. And there is a company in the U.S. that does 3D printed beads. So, of course, I had to buy some. And so, I'm always looking for, like, really fun, unique things that are, what's popular with people these days. So that's definitely where I try to keep up on while still having, a huge variety of other stuff. So.
And then I know that another big piece of the business are the classes.
That's something that we've always done here at String Bead. We've always had classes because, I mean, you can't make jewelry if you don't know how to make it. I mean, we can help you put it together if you want to come in and make something. If you're just like, well, I'm not really going to like start a business on myself, but we can help you figure out like, how you want to make earrings, what you're going to need to put it together. But if you really want to start making your own, even just for like gifts for people, because there's nothing better than giving something like handmade that's personalized. And so we have all the way from basic beading, stringing things, stretchy cord, weaving, intricate design work, peyote stitch, to metalsmithing, which is a little bit more unique when it comes to a bead store. Not as common doing things involving torches, which is always fun. Like I said, I like melting glass. Unfortunately, that's the one thing that I'm like dying and I haven't set up yet is any sort of glassworking because public spaces, California, oxygen propane tanks, kind of frowned upon. My insurance probably wouldn't want to cover that. And so I stick with the little torches, which still can do a lot of work. And so you can get into cutting out your own dinosaur skulls, making your own rings,
cool.
Earrings. So, and then the earrings that I'm wearing,
of
course, little T-Rex skulls. And these are fused enamel. And so it's powdered glass on top of copper. So still a little bit of glass work, just on like a smaller scale. And that is like a whole other art in and of itself. Like if you really like doing art, enameling is a great medium to play with because you can kind of like mix it up like paints. And you can do layers. It's compatible with graphite, so if you just want to doodle, you can. A lot of really old religious pieces that you find are enameled, and you can enamel on copper, which is great because it's very inexpensive, or you can enamel on gold. Not so inexpensive. Or fine silver. It has to be a pure metal. But yeah, enameling was also like, that was the rabbit hole I got into after the glass bead making, because it was more accessible to do at home because I didn't have to have a tank because I rented, or a kiln, which takes up a lot of space. The only thing that discouraged me initially, and a lot of people when they do jewelry making, is learning how to saw. Saw work takes patience because it's, just like when you're cutting a piece of wood, it's a very fine hair blade that if you don't have that patience and you're frustrated that day, you're going to break your blade and you're going to have to start over and you're going to do it again. And then you're going to throw it across the room and go hammer something for a minute and then get back to sawing. So that's kind of like animals have always been a passion of mine. And so it's like, okay, I really want a dinosaur skull, or I want a frog, or I want a seahorse. Like, you can't go buy that blank. You can buy hearts, you can buy flowers, you can buy nice fun shapes, a lot of geometric stuff. A little bit more intricate ones, not so much, because it's not as easy to make a tool to cut that out. No one's going to hand cut you, 100 seahorses if you want to make some. Mm-hmm. So you got to learn how to cut it yourself. But the great thing about that, like with all of our classes, we have a studio where people can come and rent out for the month. And whenever they want to come in during hours, they can use the space. So they don't necessarily have to invest in getting a whole setup at home, which can be intimidating when it comes to, any new craft or hobby. One of my favorite shows to watch, Forged in Fire.
Oh, yeah. My mom loves that show.
And there's a guy on there who's like, why buy a knife for $60 when you can make it yourself for like $6,000? Because, after you buy all the equipment and the forge and the this and that, it's not that much for making beading. It's like, yeah, but now I get to make like 100 pieces instead of buying the one. But not everyone has that space, or they move around a lot. And so it's great having like a center where you can come and hang out and get help. I am only here in the afternoons. So if like people have specific questions, I tell them like, come in the morning, figure out what you want to work on, get your project going. And then by the time you need help troubleshooting, like ask questions. Like, I'm not afraid to show you how to do something if I think like I'm not going to make you take another class. Like, oh, well, if you want to learn how to do that, it's like, no, you're here, you're working on something. Like, I'm going to help you figure it out because I want you to be able to do your projects. Like, I want you to be able to learn and explore and, get passionate about it versus feeling like you're going to be deterred. It's like, oh, I have to take another class. I have to do this. So it's like, yeah, we've got a lot of great classes for getting started. We have some really cool advanced ones for some fun techniques, but mostly I just want people to get back into being creative and not be afraid to start something because they're afraid of the startup cost on it. It's like, yeah, it's easy to go look around in here and spend way too much money. I have to tell vendors not to come through because even if I'm like, oh yeah, I've got a budget, I'll buy a little bit, I'm always way over budget by a lot. And that's usually why I then have a sale. It's like, okay, I bought String Bead. Somebody needs to come buy some real quick. Because it's hard not to because there's too many shiny things. But, even if you haven't used if you're getting back into it and haven't used your beads in a long time, sometimes it just takes buying a new pendant to get like inspired and get that spark reinvigorated and go, okay, I'm going to dig this thing out that's been in a box for 5 years. I'm going to finish it. I told myself that too on a very specific project, and it's still in a box. But I still look at it now, and I'm more convinced I'm going to sit down and work on it whenever I have time.
Progress.
Yes, progress has been made.
You went over some of the classes that you teach, and is it available for all ages or?
So depending on attention span, we usually say beading classes, 8 is a good age to start at. I have done classes with like 5 and 6 year olds because sometimes the 5-year-old is more mature than the 8-year-old. So, I mean, we do kind of take that like case by case. The torchwork stuff, definitely a little bit more mature. I usually say around 12. Again, it's not necessarily a hard cutoff. If the parent's going to take the class with them, they could totally be younger because there's a little bit more supervision there. But, it's more of like again, case by case when it comes to the torchwork stuff. As long as you think there's somebody who's going to be interested, listens well, is going to be passionate about it and not like, oh, I just want to kick them out of the house for a couple hours, do a beading class. The torch classes, though, I mean, it gets everybody's attention because, I mean, what kid doesn't want to play with fire? constructively. Um, all supervised, or even hammer something, I mean, because what kid gets to like take an actual hammer and just smash something for a couple hours? But no, I mean, we get people who, want to take classes in their spare time after work, or are retired and finally want to get into something that they've wanted to do and have never had the time to. I mean, I even get guys who come in and buy beads because they make their own fishing lures. And so they want the hot pink beads because sparkly hot pink beads attract fish. If I'm giving anyone's secret away, like, sorry. But that's usually when we sell out of hot pink beads, is because it's fishing season and people want to come in and make their own lures. So, I mean, even though everyone really associates this with being a jewelry store, it's kind of a craft store in a sense that, like, you can use beads for anything. And I really want to start involving that more in some of the things that we're doing with classes, because I have so much personally art, paint, canvas at home, that I want to do more things that are kind of a little bit spreading that out, like beaded mosaics, or how to incorporate something in other type things, like, or crocheting, getting other guest artists in here. I love when people want to come in and teach a class, like we've done stained glass. The weaving class is a guest artist, because although I know how to do it, I do not have the patience for weaving or sewing in any way, shape, or form, which is a little ironic because it's a bead store, so you'd think string. No, I am not the string portion of bead. I like beading. I like metalsmithing. When it comes to weaving and things like that, not my forte, not my passion. And so I love getting other people in here, because if they're excited about what they do and they want to share that with someone, like, why not? And so I like to get other guest artists who are interested in doing things. Even clay, like I've got a tub of polymer clay that I just pulled out last week that I'm wanting to get back into and play with. And it's like, anyone out there who does polymer clay that wants to come teach a class, have at it. We actually have a fun little beading space where people can come and sit and work for free on their projects. And we're going to start incorporating some other things, like if you want to use any of the other art materials that are over there for a small fee, like, have at it. And kind of make it like a free-for-all, because again, I really want to get people just in the art community out more, because Chico is kind of known for being like an art community, but to actually go and do a lot of art is kind of limited. There's a lot of places to show art, and I mean, you can be a student at Butte College or Chico State, and there's a lot of other cool places, like Vang Studio has some fun classes, ceramics. Chico Ceramic Center, I think they have cool courses. You can do art classes at Chico State. You can do art classes at Butte College. Some of the other, like, outlying local areas do have, like, adult classes for, like, art and things like that, but not just for, like, a general, like, craft, like, want to make project kind of thing. So I just kind of want to, like, really encourage that more with people. So yeah.
How has it been for you to be able to work as a scientist at night but still have this creative outlet? Has that been a good balance?
Yes. Yes and no. Mostly yes. Because when I'm not here at the store on my days off, like, I don't really do a lot of art. I am a huge procrastinator. So, I mean, unless I set myself deadlines, like, I don't get stuff done. And having moved around quite a bit until recently, getting the time to sit down and do something, not so much. But whereas a business, I kind of have the mentality of, like, okay, well, I'm not just, like, fiddling around with art, even though I am. It's kind of like with a purpose, because it's like, oh, well, like, I'm going to do a project for a class. So let me play around with this, and, like, I'll make it another class or something like that, or to take pictures or something. So it's like I can use it as an excuse in my head as, like, okay, no, I have to do this project because I need to get done so that I can advertise for something, versus, like, sitting down and be like, okay, I need to be creative for creative's sake, which isn't a bad reason. But I don't think my brain works that way. I think my brain has to have, like, no, there's a reason why you have to do this. Why are we doing this today? Okay, I need to make project ideas, or I need to show off a cool new bead that we just got, or something like that. Or, Jurassic Park just came out, so come make some dinosaur shit. Like,
Yeah, keep me updated on the dinosaur shit. I loved it. I've been dying. I'm like, I need to find a paleontologist for the show.
Oh,
That would be so cool.
that weirdly, maybe rock clubs.
Oh, that's good. Walk in, see if there's anybody licking the
Possibly,
rocks. Be like,
yeah.
oh, you're a paleontologist.
Because I mean, a lot of them are people who are retired when it comes to the clubs. I mean, those are the ones who tend to organize field trips and things like that. And so, I mean, Butte County is kind of cool because we have two. We've got the Paradise Gem and Mineral Club, and then we also have the Feather River Lapidary Mineral Society. I hope I said that right. And they partner up a lot, and they're under like the same umbrella of like California gem and mineral clubs. And they do field trips like once a month to go and like find rocks. And sometimes it's local, sometimes it's out of state. And sometimes there's other stuff you can find. It's crystals typically, but I mean, like when you go to Nevada and things like that, like there's a lot of fossils out there, whether they're just little shark's teeth or something. But something that's going to be happening kind of soon, and this will be the first that a lot of people will be hearing about it. I'm going to start partnering with the Paradise Gem and Mineral Club to also do some classes with them. To try and get the community a little bit more involved in the club and rock hounding and learning about rocks, because they have open shop time. But we're also going to start doing some more formal classes up there where they have people who can teach like how to cut your own crystals. So how to make cabochons is what they're called. I'm not wearing one. That's a flat back stone that then you can learn how to take a class here in setting it or wire wrapping it and turning it into your own piece. So that's still kind of in the works, as well as casting, which is something that Chico has asked for a lot about. And I'm trying. That they have the equipment. I'm not sure if they're quite reset up again, because they do share with the Gold Nugget Museum, so they have to like create space for both to do things. But once they get that set up, I really want to partner with them to do casting classes, because a lot of people who ask about it. Lost wax casting is a lot of fun because, again, you're melting things. Mm-hmm. But if you're someone who likes to play with clay or Play-Doh or whatever, wax isn't too much different. There's wax that you can sculpt, and then there's wax that you can carve. So it's kind of a cool branch to get into as far as another media to advance in if you want to do metal smithing. So mostly excited about just cutting rocks. Like a big passion of rocks. I collect a lot of rocks. Prior to the fire, when I moved around, I literally had boxes of rocks. And when anyone helped me move, they would always joke, like, what do you have in here? And I'm like, don't open it. Like, because you are literally just helping me move some rocks right now. And so, and so I've got like stashes here that I'm like, oh, it's just a pretty color and I want to learn how to cut it. And so that's definitely a thing that I think people should get encouraged to do, because, I mean, what more fun can you have in going and finding something and cutting it and then turning it into something that you can wear or have or display or something like that.
Right.
So.
That's the whole process from start to finish.
Yeah.
What a wonderful partnership. That's exciting.
So that'll be hopefully coming soon. We're just now kind of, I've always been part of the club, but helping coordinate with some of the classes. And then, of course, it's going to be, it's volunteer for most of it. So getting people to coordinate to do the classes and all that fun jazz. So, and I mean, the club memberships for both clubs, I think, are only $40 to $50 for a person for like the year.
Oh, wow.
And then, the class fees will be like nominal, basically to cover materials and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that'll be like an added bonus to what we're doing here. And then depending on how that goes, we might do vice versa, like have classes here, because even though Paradise is only like 15, 20 minutes away, a lot of people just don't like doing that drive up the hill. And Chico doesn't have a rock club. And so, maybe just trying to get people encouraged. It's like, it's not that far. I used to commute. It's not that bad. Getting up there to do it. So,
yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So any other exciting news or any other closing thoughts that you'd like to share about the store?
So I did kind of revamp the classes this month. Slashed them for summer prices. So because class used to be anywhere from like 2 to 3, 4 hours. And so I'm kind of doing mini sessions now. So they're like 1 hour instruction tutorial with time afterwards that you can finish up, hang out, do what you want to do, to where classes are like almost half the price that they were before. And so that makes it a lot more accessible, especially in times that we've got going on right now. Budgets are tight for everybody. Cost of everything has gone up. Consumer uncertainty is a big thing right now. And so I really want to be able to keep classes accessible for people. And another fun thing that like I've offered all the time is if there's a class that you want to take and there's not a scheduled date, we can schedule it. So if there's something that you want to learn how to do and you're interested in, like you can reach out and be like, hey, like, is this something you guys even do? When can we do it? And then if one or two people get interested in it, I'll post it and we'll get other people interested in it and have a class. Because like I said, I really want to encourage people, and the bead jewelry world is so broad that you can only do so much in 1 month. And so I try and pack what I can depending on availability, but whatever somebody else has out there that they want to do, I'm more than welcome to like dive into it. So
That's wonderful. I think that's anything anyone could ask for. Keep art alive, people.
yes.
Especially now in today's times, people really need that creativity and
Yeah, and it's expression. However you want to do that expression. Like I said, sometimes hammering things is great. Sometimes melting things is great. Sometimes sitting there and patiently beating something. You know, you want to get into a meditative, like Zen zone. However you want to express something, like it should. And you should get it out there because you're just going to go nuts if you don't.
yeah. And what advice would you have for someone that is maybe thinking about starting a business or starting an artistic journey?
That's a big one. Either way, artistic journey or business. Don't be afraid to express yourself. Don't be afraid to find out what you're passionate about and dive into it. Like I said, I am kind of big on the science, so I tend to pour that in there a lot. Not everyone is. And some people, like I said, just kind of glaze over and go, okay, can we just get to the project? But that's who I am. And then that's what I like to do. And that's what I want to encourage. So if you're starting a business, start something with a passion that you know you're going to be able to express to people. But also planning, having a good 3, 5, 10-year plan, goals, even mini goals sets, is huge. Because if you just think of the business as a whole for the next rest of your life, 30 years, like what does that look like? That can be very overwhelming and daunting. The more you can break anything down, even an art project, start with the small things, start with what's going to come up first the next year, 3 years, 5 years, and set little goals for yourself that are realistic and not too extreme. But, it's one of those like shoot for the moon, plan for the worst, but, hope for the best. You always have to keep that mentality. And that's kind of what I've always done is when I jumped into this, it was like, okay, I'm doing this because I want to get back into art. It's kind of my excuse to buy all my art supplies again instead of like buying it piece by piece. I don't necessarily recommend jumping into buying a bead store. But it was kind of like, this is what kicked me into gear. And it was like, okay, but if I do this, I'm not just going to jump into this blindly. Like, what is the next year going to look like? Because COVID, who knew what that was going to look like? What is the next 3 years going to look like? 5 years? What goals do I really want to have for the store? How long do I realistically want to do this? Because as being the third owner, and everyone's added their own little thing to it each time, then each owner's had it about 15 years. It's like, okay, well, do I keep that tradition or what do I want to do past 15 years? And so that's kind of what I'm always thinking about is like, what's not next tomorrow, but like, what am I going to do in the next 3 to 5 years and how am I going to get there?
Anything that you could share with us for a 5-10-year plan?
Right now, goals that I've always had for the store is, because it's a college town, I really want to get involved with either Butte College or Chico State and incorporate students being able to take classes for credits.
Wow.
Or possibly branching into having a jewelry department. Butte College used to offer that a long, long time ago. And that person retired and they couldn't find somebody to replace it, let alone he was using a lot of personal equipment. And so jewelry smithing, metalsmithing, you can get what's called JCA accredited. So you can get a license to be a professional jeweler. And we don't really have anything like that up here in Northern California. So that'd be kind of cool to get, since we have the university here in town, maybe something that they could branch into and maybe encourage that. Because even though I went to school for sciences, I'm big on trade schools as well. You know, clinical laboratory scientist started out as something that you learned at the hospital. You didn't have to go to school for it. You learned on the job. And then as that developed into more, then they started adding more regulations and licensing, and, you know, it creates a higher paying job, but at the same time, it also can kind of create walls. So I'm very big on trade schools, like learning a skill and being good at that skill and building a career around it.
That sounds like a wonderful plan. That's like, those are like some huge ideas. I love that.
Big ideas. I haven't quite made any big steps towards that. But it's mostly time and then getting involved with the proper people. And then, of course, because it's a state, you know, getting all the fun stuff to happen with government and state to get passed and approved and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, any government thing, feet get dragged for years. But that is definitely like an idea that I've always had that I wanted to do. So
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So before we do the tour, which I'm like chomping at the bit to see this
I
place,
keep forgetting about that.
what's the best way for people to reach you, or where are you located? Phone number, social media?
Yeah, you're seeing this and it's like, where the hell is Chico? Which is actually very funny, because when I used to go around tours and stuff, we'd tell people, oh yeah, Chico, California, and like north of Sacramento, and they go, Chino? Oh, I know where Chino is. It's like, no. That's way opposite end of California.
Right.
So yeah, we're Chico, California. So we're in a cute little shopping center called the Almond Orchard Shopping Center. Most people don't know what it's called, but if you know where Trader Joe's is, we're in that little shopping center back behind Trader Joe's, and we're back by the fountain. And so, you know, kind of like a nice little niche area. We've got a cute little parking area. You don't have to pay for parking.
That's good.
Good way to reach me is, if you want to reach me personally, afternoons in the store. And so if you call or if you want to come in, our phone number is 530-894-2323. And almost every bead store's phone number ends in 2323 because it spells bead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
For people who use, you know, old school phones, it's not a thing anymore. But yeah, you know, if you look at your phone when you do the digital text, it says bead. And so if you want to call, we're open right now, Tuesday through Saturdays, 10 to 6. We have a website, StringBead.com, that you can check out a lot of information about the store, including classes. We do Facebook and Instagram. I kind of do TikTok. That's about it for social media. But a good way to, like, if you want to just send like a message or something like that, is our email, StringBeadSocial@gmail.com. That's one that's kind of a good catch-all for anyone who has inquiries about classes, wanting to set something up. And we still do birthday parties on occasion when people want to do that. We are playing around with potentially opening on Mondays, so maybe keep an eye out for that. But right now, that's been the set hours that we've had. So
perfect.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the tour. Thank you, girls, for watching. Thank you, Heather, for your
Yeah.
amazing story. That I just can't get over the fact that you literally like started 2 careers at once. Like, that's crazy.
Yes, it was definitely a lot to take on.
That is wild. So thank you, girls, for watching. Hit like, share, subscribe, all that awkward social media stuff. Let's get to the tour.
All right. Hi, my name is Heather. Welcome to String Bead here in the Almond Orchard Shopping Center in Chico, California. I'm going to take you on a little tour of my shop here. So when you first walk in, we always have some kind of cool, fun window display of either classes that are coming up or what's on sale. So we've got a little clearance corner right now. And if you've never been to a bead store or if you've never shopped with us, we have these cool little shopping carts made out of muffin tins.
Oh my gosh.
And so this is your danger tray here that you're going to take around with you and fill up with some fun stuff. And so as you go around the store, we have things kind of organized by what they're made out of. And so we've got some fun, cool pieces here right now with a lot of really sparkly Chinese crystal beads. But how the store is organized is by material. So first big thing that we have when you walk in is this wonderful rainbow wall of seed beads. And so these are all the check glass seed beads that are still hand cut. And then as you come down, we get into our other check glass wall that is like every shape under the sun that you can imagine. Also, of course, arranged in a rainbow, because what better way to find colors? And then we also have a lot of trade beads. So things that are made in Africa, Kenya. So this is Kenyan brass. We have glass beads made from Ghana. We have new beads. We have old beads from the 1800s. And that's kind of what this case is all about. We also have a lot of other natural materials too. So we have wood, bone, and horn, which is actually kind of cool with the horn because horn material is scavenged. It's not something that's poached for. Same thing with a lot of the bone material that we get. It's when they use every part of the animal. So like they're not going out hunting for bones. We get a lot of people asking about that. Freshwater pearls. So this is kind of like our ocean table.
It's like a mermaid.
Yeah, so we've got shells, we've got coral. I wish I had more abalone, but that's getting really hard to find these days. But lots of freshwater pearls in a lot of different colors. And then the one thing that like everybody loves or asks for is the gemstones. And so we have like 3 different tables of gemstones. These are going to be lots of strands. So if you're making necklaces or if you're making a lot of something, these give you a lot of extra beads to play with. We organize them by color, not by what they are. So I mean, some trays you're going to find a lot of different gemstones like Amazonite, chrysoprase, malachite. They're all mixed in because they're all green. If you only want 1 or 2 beads, we have the table over here. That's all of our individual gemstones. So if you're coming in and wanting to build a piece here in the store, you just need a couple of them, you can pick them out as you go. We even have bead boards that you can design your piece if need be. And then this section, more gemstones, are called cabochons. And so these are pieces that are flat on the back, and these are great for wire wrapping, setting in silver, that kind of thing.
Beautiful stuff.
And then, of course, you got to put it all together. We have like the hardware section. So these are all the little bits, components, parts to assemble your jewelry or whatever craft project you're working on. And they're called findings, which is actually really funny because when beading was first a thing, there was no bead stores. And unless you were a jeweler and handcrafted something, you could not find components to make your own jewelry. So what people did was they cannibalized old jewelry. They'd cut apart their grandma's like pearls or something. And so companies started catching on like, oh, hey, people are looking for these little parts. And so now there's just whole companies dedicated to like insane different types of components and parts to build your pieces. And then we have some fun raw materials. This is all copper and brass, which we use a lot of this for some of our metalsmithing classes, our enameling classes, anything involving torches, including just straight sheet metal. And then we do also carry a lot of that in silver as well. So if you want to do sterling silver, that is also courses that we teach. And then of course, you know, you can't have jewelry without chain. So we've got wonderful chain here, which is our sterling silver. And then we have like this whole wall over here of different cording, as well as all kinds of cool plated chains. So if you want to get into like making your own costume jewelry, or you like some like things with colors, like if you love copper, or my favorite is actually the gunmetal, because I like black. It just wears really well too. So lots of cool styles to choose from that. And then of course we also have like an eclectic mix of vintage beads, glass beads that have larger holes, pressed shapes, all kinds of fun stuff.
Literally all kinds of fun stuff.
You can definitely get lost in here for hours.
Yes.
I always warn employees, and this was something that I was warned about when I started working here and I didn't believe them. I tell people it's a very dangerous store to work because you end up working for beads, not a paycheck. How many hours can I work extra to afford this thing that I want to get? So it's like same thing if you're in art and you know you go work at like Ellis Art and Engineering. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna spend my paycheck on canvas and paint. I'm gonna spend my paycheck on beads.
So cool.
And then,
Oh,
of
I see little
course, all the
dinosaurs.
fun charms. Yeah, you found more dinosaurs. Gotta have different charms and pieces to add into everything.
And then let's take a look at the classes. Where the classes are. Are these like the workshop tables or?
So the beading classes we just have on the back table, but the studio, so like this is the space that you can rent out. So this is our little shop studio setup, and so we have your basic essentials you need for soldering, or doing any hammering, texturing, all of your needs for metal smithing. I have some more extreme tools set up over here for cutting. We have doming. I have a rolling mill for texturing metals, which is this big bad boy just kind of hanging out over here. So this is a fun thing to play with. And I'm always looking at trying to expand to different tools as well. And so anytime you want to come rent out the shop, these are also accessible for people to use once they've been shown how to properly use them.
Very nice.
And then, of course, if you want to get into your own studio at home, we sell all the tools. So we have all the torches, we have all the pliers, we have all the mandrels, hammers. We can special order anything if there's something you're looking for and can't find. And so we really try and help encourage people that if they need something, they've got it here, they can look at it. Because, there's 1,000,001 torches. What torch are you going to buy? There's pros and cons to a lot of them. The ones that I use in the store for the shop are the ones that I tend to sell because they're easy to use, they're not intimidating, and they're actually one of the more popular ones that a lot of people use for metalsmithing if they're not going to use oxygen and propane.
All right, my dear, I think that is a wrap.
Awesome.
Woo!